Okay, so I'm going to talk about We Need to Talk About Kevin. It's a bit of a mouthful, and it's also written and directed by Lynn Ramsey. It's starring Tilda Swinton, John C. Reilly and Ezra Miller. So the film is based upon the book of the same name by Lionel Schreiber. It's a book I really love, and it's about Eva, who is a travel writer. She's made a living out of going to many places and writing books on it. She is married to Franklin, who's played by John C. Reilly, and they have two kids, Kevin, obviously, and Celia. Kevin is played by numerous actors throughout the film, but predominantly by Ezra Miller, who's the older version of Kevin. So the narrative of this film is very non-linear, so it's a little bit difficult to grasp a starting point to describe the plot. But essentially it's about Kevin, who has done a terrible act, he's done a terrible crime, and Eva has to look back on her life and on Kevin's life, and she's trying to work out where it all went wrong. As I said, the narrative of this film is very non-linear, but the structure itself is made up of a number of actual linear lines which are from different points in Eva's life, and they're interwoven in such a way to make it kind of seem like they're memories, and Eva is looking back on the later stages from the later stages of her life on the earlier parts of her life and the earlier parts of Kevin's life. I'm going to say this right now, I absolutely adored this film. I really loved it, and so many films have been coming out recently. The magnitude of incredible films is blowing me away. Every single film at the moment seems to be better than the last one. It's just an incredible year for movies, and I can't wait to see how the rest of the year pans out. First of all, with this film, the performances are outstanding. John C. Reilly is fantastic as always. He's a really underrated character actor to me. He's up there with the best of them. He's an incredible actor, and he's really good at playing these everyman roles. You can kind of, you feel from him this sense that he's so naive and he doesn't understand what's going on around him, and you really don't like him for that, but at the same time, he's so genuine, and you can tell he has the best intentions. He just plays this dual role really well, and he's lovable, but just so infuriating at the same time. Tilda Swinton is remarkable, as always. She's just incredible in everything she does. She is so good at playing these different versions of the same person in this film. Each different timeline feels like she's been affected in the years preceding, and so she feels like the same character, but a completely different version of that character in each situation. And Ezra Miller is absolutely astonishing. He has this strange quality of being, at the same time, kind of vacant and apathetic to everything, and at the same time being full of rage and malevolence, and he just drips with just creepiness and malevolence. It's a really threatening performance. I really loved the choices that the art director and the cinematographer chose. First of all, the way that red was used. It seemed to be in every single frame, and it was kind of obnoxiously red, and I don't mean that in a bad way at all. I think that's a really good quality. It's just there were pops of red all over the screen that really screamed out, and it's different to, say, for example, Three Colours Red, which is a film I really love, and I love the way red is used in that film. But it's used in a way that kind of just brings up the whole tone of the film as this kind of warm hue. But in this film, the way that red is used, it's kind of contrasted with other colours that don't really go with it, and against white, and it gives that really violent splash of red in every frame. I also think some of the art direction, the production design was great. I mean, the house that they were living in, this really stark, cold, bare house, was just suffocatingly clinical and big and empty. It was just, it really came across as a horrible place to be living. Also, the soundtrack is wonderful. It's composed by Jonny Greenwood. He's always great. And this film, it had this really ominous, creepy sounding soundtrack, but at the same time, it had these pop tunes that were kind of interwoven between the original stuff. And these tracks were all very happy and jolly and carefree, and it was juxtaposed with happy things that were going on and very terrible, sad things that were going on. And it kind of felt like this ironic joke, which I really liked. Also, the sound design was pretty incredible. The way that it would sound when people were moving around that big house, the way that the arrows would smash into the target, just things like that. And there was a scene which was so disturbing. It was a horrible scene to watch. And it was the scene where, after you see early on that Celia has a patch over her eye, and there's a scene around the dinner table where John C. Reilly and Tilda Swinton with Ezra Miller, they're all around this table, and they're talking about it. The way that Ezra Miller is just so cool and dripping with malevolence as he's talking, and then the way that he takes this lychee and just bites into it, it's just horrible. And the way that the sound design is used, you can hear the squelch and you can see the little bits spraying out, and it's difficult to get through. You know, Tilda Swinton's character stands up and walks off, and it's completely understandable. It's really, really horrible to watch. There's also a couple of scenes involving the mouth. I mean, there's one where Kevin bites off his fingernails one by one and puts them on the table in front of Eva, and they're both in silence, and there's just something so just aggressive and horrifying about it. And then another point in the film, it's mirrored by Eva taking out eggshells out of her mouth because she's been forced to buy cracked eggs, and taking them out and putting them on the edge of the plate, and it's a wonderful mirror there. Ultimately, this film is about motherhood. It's about blame, it's about fault, what happens when someone gives birth and how that changes them, how that changes the child, and in what way nature versus nurture really, really works, and how it's difficult to really come up with an answer to any of these questions. When I came out of this film, I had no idea what to think because everything was left completely ambiguous. It leaves you to think about it, and the way everyone is shown, you can see arguments for and against everything. Anyone could be at fault, anyone and all the combinations could be at fault. You could completely sympathise with any of the characters, but you could also completely hate or blame any of the characters. And in that way, it was just so wonderful, it's so refreshing, and it's something you can really talk about and discuss. So I'm going to give this film a 5 out of 5. Again, I'm giving so many films 5 out of 5 at the moment. I don't usually. I've given probably more 5 out of 5s in the last couple of weeks than I have for the whole rest of the year. It's crazy. So this year is looking great at the moment. Thanks for watching. Please leave a comment down below. Like my video, it would really help me out a lot, and keep watching, subscribe. Thanks.